Nelson Mandela once said that the youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and their skills and potential can change the world. As a high school English teacher, that quote inspires me almost every day to do my best work. But sometimes, kids can say the type of thing that throws you off a little bit. Like when my 17-year-old student came to me recently and out of the blue asked me what my favorite cheese was. And I said, Brie. And he said, Brie? No, Mr. Kentz, I said cheese. I realized in that moment that cheese literacy was not something that this student was in possession of. But as a teacher, I have to pick and choose what battles and learning challenges I rise to. Some are better left developing on their own. However, in 2022, a different challenge, a real one, was placed in front of teachers: the advancement of artificial intelligence. Immediately, many of us recognized that the technology poses great risks to the structure of education as we know it. It was difficult to keep up with all the new developments. It felt a lot easier to put AI to the side and focus on more familiar and perhaps pressing challenges. Then my boss asked the whole faculty to read a popular business book called Who Moved My Cheese? This is a coincidence, I swear. Now, this book does not teach the reader about the logistics of the French dairy market, but it does teach the reader how to be adaptable and flexible. It's written in the format of a children's parable, but the message is applicable to both young and old. In many parts of our lives, we are really just mice, running around a maze looking for some cheese. If we get used to the cheese being in the same place all the time, and then one day someone moves it, there's really only one answer. No matter how tired or annoyed or even scared you might be, you got to get back out into the maze and find the cheese. That is the last cheese reference, I swear. Now, after reading this book, I recognized that my biggest priority was to get back out into the maze and understand AI for myself so that I could teach it to my students. What I found was an overwhelming flood of information. New releases every day, new research seemingly every week, an entirely new language that I'm somehow expected to understand and translate for my students. Navigating this new landscape and trying to chart a path forward was uncomfortable, to say the least. A little bit like feeling around for a light switch in a dark room. But the more I dug into it, the more I began to recognize how important a foundation of AI literacy would be for my students for the rest of their lives. I thought back to my own educational journey. I remember being in my early teens around the year 2000 and watching as our librarian pushed in a cart with a TV on top and a VHS player underneath and pressed play on a 10-minute video about this new thing called the internet. And then she left. We were left to our own devices, and clearly that was not good enough back then. Today, as a result, we have multiple generations of citizens who don't know how or don't feel confident in their ability to navigate the information they find online and on social media. My very own students insisted with me that the YouTube content creator News Daddy was a reliable source of news analysis for two reasons. This is a direct quote. One, because he has a British accent. And two, because he speaks into a microphone, which I guess means I'm halfway there. This lack of media literacy can be alarming because it sometimes can feel like technology is leading us down a path that we didn't necessarily choose. But it's also why we're here today. While most adults in this room are likely not fooled by News Daddy, we do share something very important in common with the next generation. Neither of us know how to handle the impact of what's coming next: AI. Now that I'm one of the adults in the room, I recognize that I have a job to do. I might not be able to change an entire generation's social media habits, but I can be the first one to teach them about AI. So I did. Last fall, I found a Holden Caulfield chatbot for my students to interview after they finished reading the seminal novel, The Catcher in the Rye. Like many first-time readers of Catcher, my students found Holden, the main character, extremely annoying. And they kept asking me over and over again, what was that ending all about? I knew it wouldn't be enough to simply put the chatbot in front of them and say, have fun. That would be the 2024 equivalent of rolling out a cart with a TV on top, pressing play on a video and walking out. So instead, like the good helicopter parent I plan on becoming, I told my students that I was going to monitor, assess, and evaluate their interactions with the bot itself. I wanted to see proof of a thoughtful approach, I told them. I wanted to see them making an effort at generating a meaningful conversation. After all, Holden is the most famously depressed character in all of literature, so it might be a good idea for them to practice some empathy. Luckily for me, my students responded. They engaged thoughtfully. They found the upper and lower bounds of what the bot could and could not do almost entirely on their own. They even recognized its dangers, and when I asked them to evaluate its effectiveness, some of them were even able to articulate the sweet spot of working with this type of technology better than I ever could have imagined. I began to think that maybe all hope was not lost. Maybe if we got creative enough and focused on the right things, we could involve and infuse AI into the learning experience in a way that does not diminish or decay our children's ability to think critically. I was so excited, I thought I had found my calling. When I got home, I practically shouted at my wife, I figured it out. I know what I want to do. I'm going to teach AI literacy. And after she told me to calm down, she asked me the same question that many of you are likely asking yourselves right now. What exactly is AI literacy? Now, there are plenty of formal and academic definitions for this term, but I prefer to use more student-friendly language, plain English. To me, AI literacy means understanding the nature and essence of AI. It means understanding that it is not magic, that it is just predicting what it thinks is the best response to our question. But it's more than that. It also means that you have had the experience of seeing what some people call ghosts in the machine. That eerie sense like maybe there is a consciousness floating around in there somewhere. It also means realizing that working with AI is not like working with software. It's more like working with a human. I wanted to give you an example of what I meant, so 2 days ago, I gave the text of the speech you are hearing right now to AI, and I asked it what it thought. Here is a sampling of some of the things it said. First, AI said, what stands out is your use of the who moved my cheese metaphor, which parallels the ongoing evolution in technology and education. Okay. Then it said, as an AI, I am part of the change you're discussing. I am designed to assist in navigating new technological landscapes, making me both a subject and a facilitator of the AI literacy that you champion. A little bit creepy, right? Kind of feels like it's alive or something. Now, here's the thing. It's not alive. I actually prompted it to speak that way. When I put the text of the speech in, I told it to give me its feedback in a self-aware way. And clearly, it did. But guess what? That's also an example of AI literacy. Having the knowledge base and the experience and the know-how to manage, push, pull AI in the ways that you need it to and the ways that you don't. Now, some of this can be a little bit overwhelming, and before we all start talking about AI consciousness and the robots taking over, and every cultural reference we've seen to AI over the last 60 years, I do want to say that in my view, AI has the potential to do more good than bad. But it is not a binary question. we should not be asking ourselves, is this technology good or bad? What we should be asking ourselves is, how are we going to react to its presence? Because it is precisely within the way that we react and adapt to its presence that will determine whether or not it is, on the whole, a positive or negative influence on our kids, our society, and our world. The good news is that right now, at least, AI is really just a reflection of humanity, since its entire neural network is running off of everything we've ever put on the internet. It's a mirror, essentially, which means, even though it might not feel like it sometimes, we do have a chance to understand it. We have a chance to become literate. The problem is that this is a very nuanced understanding of AI. I could tell you or my students about it until I am blue in the face, but the truth is that no one really understands it until they experience it for themselves. This is where you come in. If we are going to teach this in schools, and we should, something else has to happen first. We, as adults, need to get back out into the maze and find the cheese. We need to educate ourselves. That means doing the research, experimenting with the platforms, and most of all, embracing the uncertainty. Not so that you can take over the world, but so that you can save it. Nelson Mandela was right. The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and their skills and potential will change the world. But it's our job to teach them. And first, we have to educate ourselves. Thank you very much.